Hello everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm glad you're here. Accessibility is important, and I'm glad that it's important for all of you. I work at Evinced, and we build tools for making sure that all your apps and websites and web applications, they're all accessible. We build tools for developers and designers. So today, I'd like to start with a problem. We have 3 buttons here. Who can tell me which one isn't accessible? Anyone from the crowd? You. The middle one. Because of the color contrast? All right, so you're partially right, but you're also partially wrong. And the reason is that if we look at this button, it looks all right, right? The background is dark, the font is white, so the color contrast is OK. It's big enough to click if you have motoric disabilities, and the text is big enough if you have some vision impairment, maybe you're over 40. But this covers only some disabilities. What about people who are blind? They can't see it at all, and they need a screen reader. And what about people who can't use a keyboard? Maybe because they have some motoric disability, or because they use screen readers and they are blind. So accessibility is much more than meets the eye. So when you look at this button, you need to think, can I operate it with a keyboard? How do I use a keyboard in order to operate it? Once I operate it, where does the focus go? And what cases should I leave the focus on the button? And another thing is the screen reader. So people who are blind, they use screen readers. Every device today has a built-in screen reader which announces all the content of the page or the application to the user. So will the screen readers be able to reach that button? So say you have a button, a checkout button, but the screen reader doesn't know it's there. So for blind people, the button is just simply not there. Is it announced correctly? Is it clear what it does? How do you reach it? So how many states does this button need? So there's a million of questions that you need to answer in order to make this little button accessible. But the good news is that we have a solution for this, and it's called Design Assistant. We have a Figma plugin. It's available on the store. Everyone can reach it, but you do need a username and a password to reach it. So after the talk, feel free to reach out. We'll get you one. And it helps you make sure that your design is accessible, and that is then handed over to the developer who can build it in an accessible way. So we have 2 main modes of operations in Design Assistant, for components and for layouts. And now I'll switch to my demo. Sorry. So here I have a button component. I copied it off an open source design system, and I planted in some accessibility issues. You can see that Design Assistant has design system mode, and now I'm scanning it. So there are 3 steps in making this button accessible. Step number 1 is making sure that it has all the relevant states. Did you know that a button needs to have at least a default state and a focus state in order to be accessible? So if you have a large button with many variants, and this is not a very big one, this has like 126, sometimes it's hard to keep track, and that's why Design Assistant will do it automatically for you. We extract all the properties on the page, and then we find out which one maps the states, and we automatically match the values. And if the name is not meaningful enough, we can also choose it from the drop-down. And then we match. We count the variants, and you can see that this is the first accessibility issue with this button. There are 26 default variants, but only 24 focus variants. So my button is not accessible. So step number 1, making sure all your variants are in place. Step number 2, these are the basic accessibility checks that we talked about before. We need to make sure that this button has the right color contrast, that text readability is good, and that the touch targets are good, meaning that it's big enough to click. So I can see here that I have an accessibility issue. I have a color contrast issue. All the information I need on how to fix it is in here. The foreground, the background, the contrast ratio, and how I need to fix it. I can just fix, rescan, and I'm done. So part number 2 of making this button accessible is making sure that all of these accessibility checks are passed. And then the third step is making sure that once this button turns into code, it's built in an accessible way. So here we have very detailed guidelines for the developer to make sure that it's built correctly. We have explanation about semantic HTML, doing it with ARIA roles and attributes, how to handle keyboard events, how to support it with the keyboard, how to test it, and everything you need to know, a lot of information that not necessarily your developer will know. All of this is saved on the file, so even if the developer doesn't have has a free license or has read-only permissions on the file, you can still access it all the time. Also, from security perspective, it's saved on the file. We don't send anything back to us, and it's persistent, meaning that you can start today and then go back and a few months later, or if two designers are working on the same file. So that was our design system. Now let's talk about layouts. When I'm talking about layouts, I'm talking about designs. It could be a page like this. And making this accessible is definitely not simple. So I spoke to many designers in this conference, and not many of them know what landmarks are, headings, and what you need to do. And that's totally fine, because we have your back. Everything you need to know is baked into this tool, and you just need to follow a few steps, and we'll ask you some design questions and tell you what you need to do from accessibility perspective. So here we have the accessibility checklist. Step number 1 is making sure that all your basic accessibility validations are good, the color contrast, the text readability, the touch targets. You already know that. You can just review them, fix them. Not going to do it for the sake of time. Step number 2 is landmarks. If you don't know what landmarks are, that's OK. Don't feel bad. I spoke to many designers, and most of them don't. That's why we have tutorials. We teach you everything, because not only we help you make it accessible, we also teach you about accessibility. And landmarks are a way to take your web page and divide it into parts so that a user who's blind and can't scan the page will get a mental image of what this page contains. It will also help him to skip to the relevant part. So imagine you're trying to check out on Amazon and you want to reach that checkout button, but you have a header with 1 million links and buttons, and you need to tab like 20 times in order to get to the button. So you can just skip to the relevant part with landmarks. So we have this tutorial, which I'm going to skip for now. And then we guide you through adding all of these. So I'm adding the header, which is the top section of the web page. I'm adding the main. I don't have an aside and navigation here. I do have a footer. And you can see that this is annotated on the design. And when I generate the user guidelines, it will refer to that. And we'll teach our developers how to add that into their code. So step number 2 is done, and now headings. Headings are important because they give you like a table of content of what your website has. Again, a seeing user can scan a page, but if you're blind, you can't. So we give you a table of content, and then you can just skip to the relevant part. You don't have to go through everything. So we know that not all designers think of headings in an accessibility way, and that's why we ask you a design question. What styles do you typically use for headings? And then our algorithm will extract all the text on the page and calculating using the styles you chose, but not only, also if you don't have styles, just according to font sizes, and suggest the headings. So in this case, I found 3 headings. They are annotated on the design. I can also manually add them. If I make manual changes, we'll, of course, validate them. And your headings are done. Next step is alt text. Screen readers need to announce everything there is on the screen, but what if it doesn't have text, like icons or images? Anything that provides information on the page has to have alt text. So what we do here is we extract all the images and icons we can find, and you can just add that in. This is a menu, this is a logo. We also add guardrails, so if I write icon of a cart, I will tell you that it's best practice not to use icon of because it's repetitive with the screen reader. And if my alt text is too long, I will also tell you that it's best practice to keep it nice and short. See these roofs? They are for pure decoration, so I don't need to add alt text to them. I can set them to be decorative, and then I don't need alt text. There's like another 18 of them, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to skip. But alt text is done. Next step is keyboard navigation. So keyboard navigation is important because you need to be able to operate everything just with a keyboard for the screen reader, or if you just have a motoric disability. And there's two parts to it. One is focus order. What order will you need? How will you tab through your page? And two, how do you operate all these components with a keyboard? Button is simple, but what happens if you have a tab list? How do you navigate inside the tab list? Or with radio buttons, how do you choose? What do you need to do? So all of this is covered here. So in order to create the focus order, we need to know all the interactive elements that we have on your page. So the best way to do it is we extract all the components that we find, and we try to guess what their pattern is. So a button, this button component maps to a button. We have Facebook, which is a link. A footer is like a reusable component. It's not really an interactive component. So we set it as custom, and we say that it's not interactive, but we look for all the nested components inside. And then the next step, we show you all the interactive elements we found. So you can see that I found all of these components. I know that some of you designers, sometimes you detach components, or you don't use components, just use icons or other elements. I can just add that manually in and say that this is a button. And now I have all my interactive elements here, and our algorithm can calculate the focus order. You can see that it's annotated on the design. This is the order. Typically, it's left to right, top to bottom, but for example, within a card, you need to go inside the card and not skip between the cards and then go to the next level. So now that my accessibility checklist is done, it's time for the developer guidelines. What we do here is we make a copy of this design so you can clean out the original. We know designers like their designs clean. And here we have all the content hierarchy. So remember the alt text that I added? It's right here in this table. This is the menu and the logo, and this is the decorative image. We have detailed explanations of how you add alt text in and landmarks and what you do with headings. And we have another copy, so the annotations don't override each other, with all the information about the keyboard navigation. So you can see the focus order and all the information about the components that we have inside, including how to operate them, which buttons, and everything you need to do. So now you can take this. By the way, you can export it. You can move it to another page. You can also edit it. It's in Figma. It's saved on the file. So it's available to everyone that can see this file. And then you can just hand this over to your developer and make sure that when he makes this web page into code, it's accessible from day one. So I'm going back to my presentation. So we believe that having the perfect annotation, so you have your design, you annotated it correctly, of course made sure there are no accessibility issues, you annotated it perfectly, and you handed it over to your development team with very, very detailed instructions. And we believe that this is the key for success. Because if you annotate it right and the developer designs it right, and you're going to pass all your QA tests, you're going to pass the audits, you're going to pass the automation tests. And I think there was a talk about it yesterday that the developer-designer relationship is very important, and also for accessibility. And now I'd like to speak about a second question. So I show you the Design Assistant. Everything I showed is available today. But what happens when you have a super complex page that has like a million things in it, and not everything is a component, there's a lot of other stuff in it, and annotating this can take a very, very long time. So in our lab, right now, we're working out on a button that you click and just with AI automatically annotates your entire design. So all the landmarks and the headings and the all the roles and labels and everything is completely annotated with AI, alt text as well, including complex stuff like grids. I mean, Annotating grids is super hard. How does it work? How do you use accessibility? What happens when you have a link inside the grid and with the headers and it's sortable? So it's a lot of things to figure out. But with AI, we will be able to automatically identify everything and annotate it. And then you can hand it off to your developer and make sure that it's developed perfectly accessible. And the last thing I want to talk about is the design mountain that you have to climb. When you look at people with no disabilities and designing for them, and if you look at the design mountain, the bottom part of the mountain is, does it work? And the top part of the mountain is, does it work well? When you're designing for people with no disabilities, no one's going to stay at the does it work part, right? You're climbing right to the top. You're not going to go to your boss and say, hey, this design works. You want to make a delightful design that's easy to use, that has no extra steps, that you can very easily operate and enjoy it. But when we're talking about disability, many of the times we stay at the bottom of the mountain. Does it work? Yeah, I can reach that button, but I need to tab many times to reach it. And we believe that we need to climb the disability mountain as well. And right now, in our lab, we are also working out how to use prototypes and look at flows to make sure that your accessible user can have a great experience, not just be able to do something. And if you would like to climb this mountain with us, please reach out. This is my LinkedIn. I would love to connect. And our people are at the back. We're also giving out T-shirts if you like. And thank you very much.